Picture this. You go to bed one of the wealthiest nations on earth. You wake up broke, not because of war, not because of famine, because of confidence, misplaced, unshakable confidence. Behavioral economists call it overconfidence bias, the belief that this time, the good times really will last forever. This is the story of how that belief became America's most dangerous asset. 1922. The war is over. Factories that once built tanks now build toasters and refrigerators. Skylines rise like they're racing each other to the clouds. This is what psychologists call extrapolation bias, assuming a trend will continue simply because it always has. Henry Ford's assembly line turns a 12-hour job into 90 minutes. Steel, rubber, and oil surge with demand. Rapid, visible growth like this feeds what's known as the availability heuristic. When recent success is so vivid, people assume it's the new normal, not a passing phase. By 1929, 10 million homes have radios. Jazz fills living rooms. But while cities dance, rural America struggles just to reach the floor. Farmers drowning in debt for tractors that only speed up the fall. It's an early sign of a market moving on sentiment, not fundamentals, a gap most people chose not to see. Here's the behavioral trap. Easy credit. Want a radio? Finance it. A car? Finance it. This is present bias in action, the tendency to overweight today's reward and ignore tomorrow's bill. Suddenly, everyone is a borrower and nobody's asking whether they can actually pay it back. Then came Wall Street, the real casino. Margin loans let anyone buy $100 of stock with just $10 down. It's a textbook case of risk illusion. Leverage makes gains feel bigger and losses feel impossible, right up until they aren't. This is herd behavior. When your barber, your shoe shine boy, and your neighbor are all giving stock tips, it's not insight, it's contagion. Between 1924 and 1929, the Dow Jones quadrupled, not because companies were 4 times more valuable, because belief was, and belief spreads faster than facts ever can. Companies built holding companies that owned other holding companies, layers of paper wealth built on nothing. A few economists warned of a coming crash. Wall Street didn't listen. That's confirmation bias at scale, seeking out only the voices that agreed the party would never end. October 29, 1929, Black Tuesday.
The market didn't dip, it collapsed. $14 billion vanished in hours. This is loss aversion at its most brutal. The pain of losing money hits roughly twice as hard as the pleasure of gaining it, which is exactly why the selling turned into a stampede. Outside the exchange, crowds stood in stunned silence. This is the emotional whiplash behavioral finance calls the disposition effect on a national scale. The shock of watching a gain you never banked disappear before your eyes. Then came the margin calls. Borrowed money doesn't forgive a crash. It demands repayment immediately. People who were rich on Monday were bankrupt by Thursday. This is what happens when leverage meets panic, a feedback loop where fear forces selling and selling deepens the fear. Banks built on the same blind optimism began to fail. Crowds ran, not walked, to their local branches. This is the contagion effect in its purest form. Panic itself becomes the crisis, as fear of a bank failing is enough to cause one. The collapse didn't stay in America. U.S. banks called in overseas loans, and Europe's fragile post-war economy buckled. Global trade fell by half in 3 years, proof that behavioral panic doesn't respect borders. And here's the cruelest part, the denial. Newspapers printed reassurance. Politicians insisted the worst was over. Behavioral finance calls this normalcy bias, the refusal to believe a crisis is really happening even as it unfolds right in front of you. By 1931, 1 in 4 Americans who wanted work couldn't find it. Detroit's factories fell silent. Production collapsed by 75%, the real-world cost of a psychological bubble finally meeting the ground. Breadlines stretched through downtowns at dawn. Children fainted in classrooms from hunger. Scarcity like this narrows the mind. Behavioral scientists call it the scarcity mindset, where survival crowds out every other kind of thinking, including hope. Then the sky itself turned against them. Years of aggressive farming stripped the land bare, and towering dust storms swallowed the Great Plains whole. Families packed what little they had and drove west, a real-world version of the sunk cost fallacy finally broken as people abandoned land they'd poured everything into because staying no longer made sense. In the summer of 1932, desperate war veterans marched on Washington demanding bonuses they'd been promised. The government responded with tear gas. This was a collapse of institutional trust, and once trust breaks, it takes far more than policy to rebuild it. This is the cycle behavioral economists study to this day: overconfidence, denial, panic, and collapse. The Great Depression wasn't just an economic event, it was a mass case study in human psychology, and it would take a new kind of leadership to break the cycle. March 1933.
Franklin Roosevelt took the podium. "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself," he said. It was a direct appeal to reverse the very bias that caused the collapse, replacing panic with a new, deliberately engineered sense of confidence. The Civilian Conservation Corps and Works Progress Administration put millions back to work. The Tennessee Valley Authority brought electricity to towns that had lived in darkness for generations. Tangible proof, not just promises, which is exactly what rebuilds trust after a collapse. Roosevelt didn't just create jobs, he rebuilt trust. The SEC to police Wall Street, the FDIC to guarantee your savings. These are what behavioral economists call choice architecture, rules designed around how people actually behave, not how we wish they would. Guardrails built for a species prone to panic and greed in equal measure. Slowly, the country breathed again. Banks reopened, and this time, people deposited instead of withdrew. A visible collective shift from fear back to confidence, one small transaction at a time. The Great Depression didn't end with celebration. It ended with work, legislation, and a nation slowly unlearning its own worst instincts. The market itself hadn't changed. Human psychology had simply run its full cycle, from mania to fear to recovery. And history, as behavioral finance keeps reminding us, has a habit of repeating that cycle. That's a story for another day.